The night had a stillness to it, the kind of quiet that makes every footstep sound louder than it should. A single dad walked the same route he always did with his dog. A loyal companion that had been with him since the hardest chapter of his life began. The street was dimly lit, a mixture of flickering lamps and long shadows that seemed to swallow everything whole. For him, these walks were more than just routine. They were moments of reflection. A time to process the loneliness that came with raising a child on his own, and the quiet reassurance that, despite everything, he was still moving forward. His dog tugged at the leash, eager and alert, its ears flicking back and forth, as if it sensed something out of place. He thought nothing of it at first. Dogs often react to smells or distant noises humans can't hear. But then the dog froze, muscles stiff, nose pointed forward. The father followed its gaze and saw something on the ground, just beyond the glow of a failing streetlight. At first, it looked like a pile of discarded clothes. Nothing unusual in this part of the neighborhood. But then the shape shifted. Barely, almost imperceptibly, and he realized it wasn't just a pile of fabric. His chest tightened. His steps slowed, and for a moment he felt the pull of dread telling him to turn around, to walk away and keep his child's life safe from whatever this was. But he didn't. Cautiously, he moved closer, his dog straining against the leash. When his eyes finally adjusted, he saw the truth. It was a woman, sprawled on the cold pavement, her chest rising in shallow, desperate breaths. Her uniform was torn and smeared with blood. A police badge glimmered faintly against the dark fabric. Catching the dim light with each shaky breath she drew, her hand twitched, almost reaching for him before falling weakly back to the ground. The sight rooted him in place. He had never seen someone so close to death, and for a split second, he felt utterly powerless. The sound of his own heartbeat pounded in his ears. He thought of his daughter, waiting for him back home, safe and oblivious. A voice in his head whispered that this wasn't his fight, that he should walk away, that getting involved could drag him into something far bigger than he could handle. But then he caught her eyes. They were wide with pain, but there was something else too. Pleading. A silent cry for help from a stranger who had sworn to protect people like him. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands trembling as he tried to figure out where all the blood was coming from. His dog circled anxiously, barking once, sharp and urgent, as if urging him to hurry. The father leaned closer and heard her ragged breath, a weak whisper escaping her lips, though he couldn't make out the words. Her uniform was damp with blood near her side, and when he pressed gently, she winced and tried to move. He knew enough to realize she didn't have much time. The street around them was empty, silent except for the distant hum of traffic blocks away. No one else was coming. No one else had seen her. For reasons he couldn't explain, he knew he had been meant to be here. At this exact moment, his phone trembled in his hand as he tried to dial emergency services, but the woman's hand shot up weakly, gripping his wrist with surprising force. Her lips moved again, and this time he leaned close enough to catch the word. Don't. Confusion hit him like a wave. Why wouldn't she want him to call? Was she afraid of something? Or someone? His instincts screamed at him to ignore her and get help immediately. But then he saw fear etched into her face. Something deeper than the pain of her wound. Whoever had done this to her wasn't just a random attacker. There was danger in the shadows, danger that could return at any second. His dog growled low, ears pinned back, watching the darkness around them as if it, too, sensed a presence nearby. The father's heart hammered harder. Every second felt like it stretched into eternity, the choice looming heavier, get up and leave her, or stay and fight against the fear clawing at him. He tightened his grip on her hand, his voice steady even though his insides felt like they were unraveling. I'm not leaving you here, he whispered. The words seemed to calm her, if only a little. She closed her eyes, still breathing faintly, as if surrendering herself into his care. His dog barked again, and he glanced up, scanning the empty street. The flickering lamp overhead cast eerie shadows that shifted and stretched, making him feel like eyes were watching from every corner. He knew he couldn't just wait here for help that might never come, not when she had told him not to call. Every detail pressed itself into his memory. The weight of her hand in his, the warmth of blood soaking through his shirt, as he tried to hold pressure on the wound, the way his dog stood guard, tail stiff, as though daring anyone to come closer. The world felt smaller, reduced to this fragile circle of life and death under a single broken streetlight. Time seemed suspended, but the urgency clawed at him, telling him that the next move would decide everything. In that moment, he realized something about himself. He had always seen his life as survival, taking care of his daughter, keeping his head down, trying to rebuild after loss. But kneeling on the pavement with this dying woman, he understood that survival sometimes meant stepping into danger for the sake of another soul. He hadn't planned it, hadn't wanted it, but the decision was made the moment he saw her eyes. He leaned close again, speaking softly so only she could hear, promising he wouldn't let her slip away alone. His dog pressed against his side as if lending its strength, its steady presence anchoring him to the moment. The man's fear was real, his uncertainty was crushing. But his resolve was stronger. He couldn't have explained why, but he knew that from this night forward, his life would never be the same. And as he held on, waiting for the courage to take the next step, the weight of the choice he had made began to sink in. He was no longer just a single dad walking his dog. He was the one standing between life and death, and what he did next would echo far beyond this deserted street. The single father knelt on the cold pavement, his hands pressed against the wound of the woman in uniform, feeling the sticky warmth of her blood seeping through his fingers. The thought of walking away flashed across his mind again and again, but it was fleeting, smothered by the look in her eyes. He had been presented with a choice, one that demanded he weigh his responsibilities, as a father against the instinct to help a fellow human being in need. The weight of that decision pressed harder than the wound beneath his palms. If he stayed, he might put himself in danger. If he left, he would never forgive himself. His daughter depended on him, but so did this stranger lying broken on the ground. His dog shifted anxiously, barking into the night as if calling for backup that would never come. The sound echoed down the empty street, bouncing off brick walls and cracked sidewalks. Yet no one answered. The father's phone buzzed faintly in his hand, screen glowing, the emergency number already typed in. But her whisper, "Don't," still echoed in his ears. Something about the way she had said it chilled him. This wasn't just fear of dying, it was fear of being found. That meant whoever had done this to her might not be far away. He knew he had no time to wrestle with doubt. He pressed harder on her wound, whispering to keep her awake, asking for her name, something, anything to anchor her to life. Her lips trembled as she tried to answer, but no sound came out. Instead, she gripped his wrist again with weak determination, her eyes filled with a plea too deep for words. His heart pounded as he realized the truth. He couldn't rely on anyone else to save her. He had to act. For years, he had lived cautiously. Every choice filtered through the lens of being a single father. He avoided risks, turned down opportunities, all in the name of stability for his daughter. But as he crouched on that street with a dying officer before him, the safe path no longer existed. He thought of his little girl asleep at home, dreaming in peace. And he knew he was about to step into something dangerous, maybe even reckless. Yet in that same thought came clarity. If his daughter were in this woman's place, wouldn't he pray for someone to risk it all? His decision crystallized. He tore off his jacket, balling it up and pressing it firmly against her wound, trying to slow the bleeding. His hands shook, not from fear alone, but from the pressure of carrying another person's life. His dog, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, settled by the officer's side, pressing close to her with a protective stance. The sight of his loyal companion standing guard gave him courage. He would not leave her to die here. The father slid one arm carefully beneath her shoulders, the other under her legs, and with a groan he lifted her off the pavement. She was heavier than he expected, her body limp and unresponsive, her head lolling against his chest. His dog barked again, circling before running a few paces ahead, as though urging him to follow. Step by step, he carried her down the street, every muscle burning with the effort, every nerve braced for the possibility of an attacker re-emerging from the shadows. His mind raced with questions. Who had done this? Why didn't she want the police called? Was she running from someone within her own force? None of it mattered now. What mattered was keeping her alive long enough to find out. He whispered encouragement in her ear, words he wasn't even sure she could hear, but he spoke them anyway. Stay with me. You're not done yet. Just hold on. Every sound in the night felt amplified. The crunch of gravel under his boots, the distant hum of a passing car, the faint rustle of leaves overhead. He imagined eyes watching from every dark corner, waiting for him to falter. But with each step, his determination grew. He thought of his late wife. How she had once told him that true strength was found in the moments you least expected. He felt her presence now, as if guiding him, as if reminding him that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the act of moving forward despite it. By the time he reached his car, his arms were trembling with exhaustion. He laid the officer gently across the back seat, his jacket still pressed to her wound, then quickly instructed his dog to jump in beside her. The animal obeyed, curling protectively at her side, its warm body a living shield. The father slammed the door shut and slid behind the wheel, his hands slick with blood as he gripped the steering wheel. He had no plan beyond one thing: get her to safety. The engine roared to life, and as he sped through the empty streets, he kept glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting headlights to appear behind him, some unseen enemy giving chase. But the road remained eerily clear, the silence punctuated only by the labored breathing of the woman he was trying desperately to save. He talked to her as he drove, telling her stories about his daughter, about the little victories of everyday life, anything to keep her tethered to consciousness. It was strange, bearing pieces of himself to someone who might never even remember his face, but it felt necessary. The longer he drove, the stronger his conviction became. He had made the choice, the one that split his life into before and after. No matter what danger lay ahead, he knew he would never regret it. He wasn't just carrying a wounded officer. He was carrying the weight of his own humanity, proving to himself that he was still capable of extraordinary courage. By the time he saw the faint glow of the hospital's emergency sign in the distance, he realized that this decision, this reckless, impossible decision, was about more than just saving her. It was about saving himself too. For so long, he had lived only for survival, only for the safety of his small family circle. But tonight, he had chosen to step into the fire for someone else. And whether she lived or died, whether the police force thanked him or condemned him, the act itself would forever define him. He drove faster, every second counting, every heartbeat echoing the urgency of the choice he had made. His dog let out one sharp bark from the back seat, and the father glanced in the mirror, to see the officer's chest still rising, faint but steady. Relief surged through him, even as fear gnawed at the edges of his resolve. He whispered again, softer this time, more a promise than encouragement. "You're not alone. Not tonight." And with that, the man who once only thought of himself as a single dad discovered a strength that neither grief nor loneliness had ever revealed. The decision he made on that dark street was more than an act of kindness. It was an act of transformation, one that would ripple far beyond that night and shock an entire police force into seeing him not as an ordinary man, but as someone extraordinary.